actually do the largest tornadoes recorded to see how much it sucks or not first. And then I might do an Oklahoma a different day. I was gonna do something, now I forgot, fuck. This is what I mean by women are just a distraction, because I distracted myself, I don't remember. It's tornadoes! Who cares where the tornado is? Does it really matter that it's in Oklahoma?
Back the f*** up!
Or Oklahoma. I don't what people already say I speak gibberish with my Australian slang. The largest tornadoes in recorded history, mega disaster by spark. A long ass tornado. They should be discontinued. Honestly, yeah. Honestly.
Volatile.
The whole country looked like it was in a nuclear blast of some type.
And lethal.
I kept talking to myself, thinking, well, this is it.
They leave behind obliterated towns.
There were no houses left. They were all gone.
And bewildered scientists.
It's not an exact science.
Each tornado is unique, most dangerous, a few deadly. From the tremendous to the terrifying to the tragic, this is a countdown to a mega tornado, one that experts believe will devastate a major American city.
Twister? Did I watch Twister? I don't know. There were so many disaster movies. I have to move my ass down again. How do I keep shimmying upwards? Keeps like shimmering my ass upwards. Look at my mic. Oh my god, this entire time.
The most ominous tornado warning comes when an apocalyptic-like darkness fills the sky. These clouds
I
are
think both. I have not watched either Twister or Footloose.
to a powerful
Tornadoes.
storm.
You gotta hate those
Supercell.
cities. Ooh,
Most tornadoes
looks like food.
form when a violently rotating column of air stretches down from that supercell to touch the Earth. In general,
Isn't Footloose just a movie about dancing?
the faster the wind speeds, the more dangerous the tornado. Surprisingly, relatively little is known about these giant killers. Scientists are literally chasing the
Ooh, that looks so cool. I don't know. Is it as good as Dirty Dancing, though?
mysteries of tornadoes across the Great Plains of the United States, better known as Tornado Alley.
This one was like extra aggro. That tornado was extra aggro for sure.
400 tornadoes threaten to wreak a path of destruction here every year.
Magic Mike. Oh my fucking
Far
God.
more than any other place in the world.
Oh, okay. So this is this the tornado strip? Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota. And that's New Mexico? What?
The
Okay.
main reason? Ideal
I
atmosphere.
get so confused by the geography of America sometimes.
Conditions.
The mountains to the west, the Gulf of Mexico to the south, and the fact that there are no
Doesn't that
physical
area also
barriers
really
between
likes guns?
here and the North Pole means that we are frequently changing air masses from warm to cold and back again.
Tornadoes are measured using the F scale. F for
I wonder what the connection is there.
Dr. Theodore Fujita, who classified tornado strength by estimating wind speed based on devastation. The smallest twisters are F-zeros. They can reach 116 kilometers per hour, about the equivalent of a small hurricane. At the other end of the scale are F5s, whose winds reach speeds of up to 512 kilometers per hour.
You can hear the ground almost shaking with that. Crazy.
Back up! Back up! Keep going, keep going, keep going!
The tornadoes profiled here rise up the Fujita scale from an F2 that rips the roof off a house.
Did you see that?
To an F5 that lays waste to an entire neighborhood. It's all leading up to a mega tornado, one that some scientists fear will ravage a primary city.
Yeah, the most I've seen in Australia are called dust devils. They're just like a little bit like that first tornado, but like more pinpointed. Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? I wonder why.
111 kilometers southwest of Wichita lies the small town of Ateka, Kansas. Just over 600 people live here. It's a town you could easily miss. On May 12, 2004, a tornado didn't. On that day, the blue skies over Harper County filled with storm clouds.
This is giving me such Aussie vibes,
Shortly
honestly.
after 6 p.m., Dan Smithheisler heads into Ateka.
Reminds me a lot of Outback Australia.
I did some work for a
Even the
banker in
thin,
there.
even the thin trees.
I told his wife, I said, you know, it's going to storm today.
Several thunderstorms form over southern Kansas. One look at these storms tells 30-year veteran meteorologist Chuck Doswell they might be a breeding ground for tornadoes.
One of the important ingredients that produces a tornado that we're pretty sure is the wind at low levels has to change direction and speed rapidly with height. We call that vertical wind shear.
The vertical wind shear typically spins the air into an invisible cylinder. As the wind speed increases and rises, the tornado intensifies and the core pressure drops. Condensation from the dropping pressure builds down the funnel, creating a visible tornado. That's exactly.
So that wind spin is in the air already. It's just not visible enough, so you may get a strong gust or whatever, but you just can't visibly see it. That's kind of spooky, isn't it?
What's happening in the southern Kansas sky. Harper County Emergency Management Director Mike Lorig gets the first tornado warning at 6:45.
And when they start giving us those warnings, we listen and we say, hey, we need to start warning our public from there. We do not know if this is going to be an F0 or it's going to turn into the monster.
In
Ooh,
Kansas,
lightning in the ground. Yeah, Australia has similar things in fires where with big enough fires it literally causes its own mini weather. Where my sister was stuck out in the fires in further out west, they literally had extreme colds because some fires become so big they create lightning storms and extreme colds. It's very weird. Science.
Meteorologists carefully follow the thunderstorm as it tracks towards Ateka.
About 7:25 in the evening, a F2 tornado had made it to ground right up here just on this hill. The path of it was right across here.
As Lorig watches in astonishment, the tornado tears the roof off a home directly in front of him.
Oh my God. Oh my God. The whole house came apart.
Ooh. Ripped it to shreds.
This act of violence is just one of many. The angry skies over Kansas are far from finished.
We thought, okay, hopefully things are over. We got emergency crews set up for that. And then the storm just suddenly, it took a life on its own.
Storm chasers tracking the Kansas supercell relay information to meteorologists using mobile Doppler radar. They report the tornado's wind speed, location, and one other startling fact. The storm is producing multiple tornadoes.
What's that? That is completely out of like a horror movie, disaster movie.
Chaser Yvette Richardson seen a supercell create more than one tornado before.
It can be a very dangerous situation because often people will be looking at the main tornado and feeling that as long as they're far enough away or they've taken cover that they should be completely safe.
Her team and others
When a sneaky tornado comes up behind you to bite you on the ass.
report seeing 16 tornadoes. They vary significantly in size and power. The biggest is an F4, roughly 160 kilometers per hour faster and with corresponding
as
wind
circly
force
as I
about 3
thought it.
times larger than an F2.
Waking trick of the kale market. Is it
The
versatile?
F4 heads straight for Dan and Donna Smithheisler's home.
I was listening to the radio and the TV, and they had it exactly pinpointed. They knew exactly where it was at.
Knowing a tornado's path gives potential victims an average of 12 minutes warning, enough time to save their lives. The Smith-Heislers get the warning, but Dan ignores it.
Oh no.
Mesmerized by the golf ball-sized hail that often precedes a tornado. He refuses to join his wife down in the basement.
That scared me, and so I started screaming at him to get down, and the dog would not come down. He said, well, Sugar won't come. And she was going in the door, out the door, in the door. Dogs are smart. They know. So when I screamed at Sugar, then she came down. He came down.
We started hearing this.
I'm not coming down if the dog don't come down. Hey, Reaper. Storm chasers are some of the craziest people I've ever. Yes, I was seeing some stuff about it. It's like, what the fuck? That is crazy. Hobby.
Well, we had a rack of canned goods over there, and those cans were popping from the pressure change.
I can't even.
It sounded like popcorn going off over there.
The tornado batters Dan and Donna's home with winds estimated at more than 322 kilometers per hour.
Yeah, it's been a while. I've been good, just working, editing, fun stuff. Got a lot of things happening this month.
Cement or something, you know. I can still hear myself groan. All of a sudden, you're just gonna like go with it. And that's where I was when he said, we're not gonna make it. And that woke me up. And I said, oh yes, we are too, you know. And you pray really hard.
The savage winds rip unrelentingly over the Smith-Heislers' home. When they finally stop, the couple emerge from their basement and into a war zone.
Devastating. Made a thing? What thing? A good job, Roxas, being a good cleaner house husband. You'll do a good job one day.
And I thought, where's the car? And then my next thought was, where's the garage?
The twister destroyed the couple's 2-story home, 5 barns, dismantled 5 cars, and killed their dog, Sugar.
Sugar, no!
The terror down there was the worst part. The terror.
The Smith-Heislers are lucky to be alive. With estimated wind speeds near 400
How did they
kilometers
kill the
per
dog?
hour,
I thought it
the
went
F4
downstairs.
tornado easily destroyed their home. But even the earlier F2, with winds estimated at 240 kilometers per hour, was capable of ripping the roof off this home. Complex physics transform air into a lethal force. A concept scientists are laboring to understand.
Look at the little the mini houses. That's so cute. That's kind of a cool job, right? Hey Yash, thanks for the follow. Welcome to Delinquents.
What we're trying to do is simulate the tornado as best as we can. So we're actually comparing the wind which we generate here with the measurements made in the field. And the match is pretty good.
Saka's Tornado Simulator is the first of its kind in the world.
Tacos
It uses
and ice
dry
cream?
ice to
Interesting
create
combo.
a visual display of the wind inside a vortex. His machine can produce tornadoes up to 1.2 meters in diameter and 2.4 meters tall. It can reach peak wind speeds of 86 kilometers per hour. When combined with scale models, he's able to replicate damage much larger and faster tornadoes inflict on homes and other structures.
Normally, a portion of the roof fails and create a hole in the building, which then the flow starts getting inside, which then creates more load on the walls, and eventually those walls start failing.
Saka's experiments conclude
Okay, so
that
the problem is with the roofs failing. It's just a tornado machine, just a normal day.
the destructive force of circulating wind in an F3 or stronger tornado is at least 3 times more powerful than straight-line winds.
I'm going on my conspiracy theory websites after this to talk about how the government's really trying to create weather. They want to control the weather. Conspiracy
Since
theory
few
time.
structures in
Hey
Tornado
GP
Alley
Smurf,
are
thanks for the follow. Welcome to the Delinquents.
designed to withstand even an F1's winds, this
Give
is
me my
stark
tinfoil
proof
hat.
that even the weakest tornado is capable of causing damage. The residents of Ateka were thankful to have survived the fury of the 16 tornadoes
Give
that
them it.
struck
That would be a fun job. I think everyone downplays how fun being a scientist can be.
Kansas. But when a single F4 twister strikes a small Texas town, its bizarre behavior and surprising power threatens to destroy the entire city. And later, a mega tornado strikes a major American city, something experts say will happen.
It will happen.
In 2004,
I guess that's the thing too, why Australia doesn't have basements. We don't get many tornadoes.
A single
Also, we get
Kansas
floods, so that's not helpful.
storm produced a swarm of tornadoes that ravaged homes, destroyed property, and terrorized hundreds. But the power and damage of
That's
that
cool and all. Let's make it a fire tornado so we can see better. But I guess that's why they were using the ice.
outbreak was far surpassed by the stunning force and unpredictable behavior of a single Texas twister.
It had bizarre movement.
Pampa, Texas has had its share of luck.
In Australian fires, you can get fire tornadoes. That's not super... Well, it's not common, but it's not uncommon, if that makes sense.
The town has prospered since oil was discovered here in 1921. Today, 17,000 residents work the hard
Smaller in size, if that makes sense, than what you would think of with a tornado.
soil, farming, ranching, and refining oil. But the town's location in the Texas Panhandle is also its biggest
Well,
flaw.
pew 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 pew
This
pew pew, America! Sorry. I need a gift of flying in on an eagle every time something like this happens. So I went, caw.
tree. On the afternoon of June 8, 1995, Pampa's luck ran out. Randy Stubblefield is a lifelong resident.
Why did we pan up from his crotch? Okay, we should have started a little lower, I feel. By butthole college, it was well. Oh, interesting.
Pampa.
I imagine it would be
In his 2
crazy to
years as
see.
sheriff, he's seen his share of violence. But nothing compares to what he's about to confront.
About 4 o'clock in the afternoon,
He's
we
a
received
sheriff.
a call that there was a large tornado was building on the south side of the Amarillo Highway.
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
about
say
a mile.
he's extra Texan right now. Oh, but yeah, I know I had a long day in the vid slayers. The War Machines are... No, I don't think so. What is that from?
A mile and a half from where we're standing now.
Stubblefield grabs his camcorder and rushes towards the twister.
I watched it building on the farmland on the north side of the railroad tracks, and it just started building, getting bigger and bigger.
Meteorologist Chuck Doswell is also chasing and filming the Pampa tornado.
The evolution of the Pampa tornado with respect to the parent thunderstorm was very unusual in my experience. I've never seen anything quite like it.
What Doswell sees is remarkable. The tornado is almost standing still.
Moonshine Animations? I've never heard of that.
Then, suddenly, the tornado makes a sharp right turn. This odd behavior stuns Doswell.
Very sneaky indeed.
Tornadoes move in a particular direction because they're tied to the storm that's producing them. And the storm that's producing them moves in a particular direction because it's embedded in a wind field which is pushing it in that direction.
But the Pampa tornado isn't moving in the same direction as the storm. After a series of sharp turns, the twister loops almost 270 degrees around Doswell.
Lots of faith. I have never seen a moonshine. No, never.
These erratic and unpredictable movements make this a very dangerous tornado.
Let's go. And I am completely mystified as to what was going on with that storm.
Then it started traveling north. Get everybody inside because this is one big sun.
See, that's what you think of when you see
industrial complex.
tornadoes like that.
Belinda Waldrop works in that complex with her father. She isn't listening to the news.
I learned that there was a tornado outside the building when my dad came to the door of the office I was in and said, Belinda, there's a tornado on the ground west of us. I'm curious. I said, can we look at it? And he said, oh, no, we don't need to look at it. We need to get under some cover.
Belinda and her father dive for shelter as the
I want
twister
a
slams
squizzy.
towards them.
You could hear...
I like that. It's time to have a squizzy. Like, nope, we're out of here.
The tornado approaching.
I sent another. Maybe you drank too much and temporary memory loss. No, I don't check every post on the Discord usually, so that's probably why. Because they get a lot of posts on there, especially when I'm busy. because I was very busy yesterday editing stuff for the channels, so there's no dime time. But yeah, that's probably why I didn't see it.
It was like a gyrating woof woof, just a churning that just got gradually more intense and louder. The lights began to
You can
flicker
reply to it and bring it back up to so I can have a look at it later.
as the pressure was building, and then the lights went out.
If that's
when you
easily
first started seeing the real debris, the metal, the rooftops and all that, that's when it hit the first series of steel buildings in the industrial complex.
And then an explosion. The vacuum just took me up off the floor and slammed me into numerous things and was pulling me backward like a rag doll.
You're going to see some vehicles going into the air. Transport trailers and truck combination. Now these units weigh probably 22,000 pounds empty. These were sucked up and in the tornado.
There's so much stuff flying through. Why is Father's Day my favorite holiday? You know, I have a granddad, so I celebrate Father's Day, but with my grandfather. Oh, the Kool-Aid Man of weather knocking down all them walls. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I celebrate them with my granddad. Same with, I don't have any contact with my mother, but I celebrate it with my grandma.
And we're going around and around.
Stubblefield and Oswell are among the few to ever film a tornado snatching up 3-ton trucks. This is a massively powerful twister. One that has Belinda Waldrop trapped in its ferocious grip.
When I was in it, there was...
Did you just say a DILF hunter would like Father's Day? What the fuck? Guys, I don't want someone already a dad or someone already married. I would make a DILF. I'm not going to steal a DILF. Who the fuck do you think I am? Stealing DILFs.
I just tried to keep
Crazy.
my eyes closed to protect my eyes. I kept talking to myself thinking, well, this is it.
And at that time, I just had a feeling of helplessness because there's nothing you can do. I mean, there's no way you can stop it, or make it go another direction or anything like that. And it was just a sick feeling.
That dropped me out here into the parking lot and just dropped me on my back, and I could see the cloud and the tornado. It looked like a white ghost.
They're lucky to be
going
alive,
up
though, for real.
And taking off.
Belinda's encounter with the tornado is over, but Randy's is just beginning.
But when I realized it was going to go into the city of Pampa...
That's the method. That's the thing. You need to pick a guy that would be a good DILF, and then you make him a DILF if you liked DILFs. Duh.
Stubblefield jumps back into his car and races down the road, directly into the path of the tornado.
One of my deputies gets on the air and says, watch out, you're too close.
Be careful, you're almost there.
You know you're too close when debris starts coming in the car with you. I had my windows down and the trash from the circulation was coming into the car with me.
It's going into the city at this time.
It was headed right straight for the sheriff's office in the downtown section. Well, I had, at that time, about 65 prisoners in jail. And, we had a big, strong building, but this is a big, strong tornado.
The twister strikes
65 people in jail? In such a small area? Crazy. DILF thief Erundel. Oh my god.
Destroying or damaging 200 homes and 50 businesses.
Texas!
Most buildings in the industrial
hell?
park are ripped off their foundations. Belinda is badly injured and in shock.
Of course, I was
It's like
just
half the
stunned
town.
and numb. I really couldn't feel anything. I felt like my legs were probably broken. I couldn't get my bearings because there was no building. There were no landmarks that I recognized at all, and I was just taken back.
Fearing the worst, Belinda desperately searches for her father.
He was draped over a motor. He looked dead, honestly. He was limp, and he wasn't moving. I managed to scoot over close to him and started rubbing him. He woke up and turned his head, and there was blood, and you could just see this white eyeball. You could just terrified look, and I'll always remember that, just stark. And he immediately said, help me up, and I can't help you up, I can't get up either.
Emergency workers rushed Belinda and her dad to the hospital.
Terrifying. Everything's bigger in Texas, even the things. That was one thing that I would, like, it's weird, a lot of people mention Disneyland and stuff like that, but I've heard such good thing about Texas food, and I know I probably wouldn't be able to eat the large portions, but that is one thing I would like to try, even though a lot of the sauces are sweeter. It's just something so nice looking about Texas, like barbecue food and stuff like that.
Both
So
are in serious
satisfying.
condition. 5 other residents also suffer injuries. Miraculously, there are no deaths.
They understand Australia and their love for meat. I feel like they just get it. Yes.
As the wounded begin their recuperation, experts study Stubblefield and Doswell's remarkable footage.
To tumble a 2 or 3 ton pickup truck along the ground and then hoist it into the air, this takes incredible wind speeds, probably in excess of 150 miles per hour.
Dave Llewellyn researches the strange and complex forces at work inside tornadoes.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I can just take it home for later or bring an eating buddy that eats all my leftovers.
It's not just
Gotta
swirling
have him a
around.
game plan.
It's actually spiraling strongly inwards.
Llewellyn believes that once an object like a vehicle is airborne, it can be slammed to the ground by powerful center downdraft winds, then hurled back skywards by updraft winds. This brutal cycle renders the debris unrecognizable before it's finally spat out as a high-speed missile.
Jeez, it's just getting like completely KO'd. Welcome in, Use Clay. Does Australia have Texas-sized tornadoes? No, tornadoes aren't very common in most of Australia. I actually don't know how. It's kind of like tsunamis are very uncommon in Oz. Monster of a tornado. Look up the El Reno tornado, 2 wide and almost a mile tall. Damn. Really?
Amazing. That was 4,600 pounds according to the crane.
Scott Schiff and his team at Clemson University are studying the damage a tornado-hurled car can do.
We're really testing this roof slab here.
Haven't they been trying to put like cameras and stuff into tornadoes to try and get like a look?
This is designed to be a shelter.
How it moves.
It's about 10 inches thick of solid concrete with a double mat of steel reinforcement. So it's heavily reinforced. It's really designed to be able to take large debris impacts.
3, 2, 1.
I drop cars for a living. Living the dream.
After multiple
It just reminds me of the Bart Simpson memes. Can you believe they're finally paying me for this?
impacts, the slab begins to crumble.
So after that last impact, we now have a permanent deformation in the slab. That rebar that's down under that bottom mat there started to yield under the load. And we started to see some more concrete falling down below there.
To counter multiple impacts,
Crazy how brutal it is. From work as the tornado was coming through our town. If I had been 15 meters slower, I'd run right into its path. Oof, lucky. Welcome in, beef jerky.
Schiff is designing a steel mesh net to catch loose debris. If that works, it will be a huge step forward in tornado protection.
We have this terrific F5 tornado. What we're looking for is that we are safe during the event and right after the event.
Despite the Pampa tornado's unpredictable movements and incredible power, no lives were taken. 608 kilometers away,
Very lucky.
another Texas town isn't so fortunate when a massive F5 twister turns tiny bits of dirt and wood into lethal weapons.
Wait, what? 600. There was 2 tornadoes around the exact same time? What the fuck? Over my house without hitting down.
And later, a mega tornado, one that scientists believe could destroy a major American city. The powerful F4 Pampa tornado tossed trucks, destroyed buildings, and threatened the lives of hundreds. But just one notch up the Vegeta scale, an F5 twister turns into a killer.
The Vegeta scale. Oh, not the Vegeta
Its
scale.
weapons, specks of dirt and splinters of wood.
It just sounds like Vegeta. Oh yeah, you would think like the world hates you or like it's the apocalypse seeing this for the first time, I think, with like it's crazy to think what insane things what we came up with, why it happened, before we had information so readily available to us. Sky got angry, bring some virgins, yes!
Gerald, Texas was founded in 1909. Located 64 kilometers north of Austin, the town never fully recovered from the decline of the cotton industry in the 1920s and 30s. In 1997, a tornado threatened to wipe Gerald off the map. From the beginning, the Gerald tornado smacks of something strange. On May 27th, a supercell forms over central Texas.
The Gerald tornado is memorable for a couple of things. One was it formed in conditions that
what
at
a
the time we
tornado
thought
name,
were very
Gerald. Just get crazy Gerald at again.
unusual.
The massive supercell lacks strong vertical wind shear, an essential ingredient in typical tornado formation. Meteorologist Bill Gallus teaches tornado forecasting utilizing a virtual reality tornado simulator.
VR, there's horny people in there. I just know it.
Get a tornado in nature, you need to have really two things. You need a very strong updraft or updraft and downdraft to help stretch the air in the vertical. And you also need to have some source of spin present.
Strong wind shear usually provides a tornado with its source of spin. Before Gerald, the conventional wisdom was that without strong wind shear, you don't get violent tornadoes. But the unusual atmospheric conditions over central Texas
I feel like I regret this. What the hell is tornadophilia?
are about to prove the conventional wisdom wrong. Dead wrong. Here, the warm, moist air rises so forcefully it generates a super strong updraft, creating a very powerful and dangerous tornado.
He's in the danger zone. The danger zone of tornadoes.
As the skies blacken and the winds rage, LaDonna Peterson and her 8-year-old son leave their mobile home
Tornado Sundere anime girl. What the hell would that look like? Everywhere.
for the safety of her mother-in-law's brick house.
I went outside and started watching the clouds outside because they were getting real thick, real dark, real heavy. And all of a sudden, I could hear in the distance, because the wind had picked up, the alarm going off in town.
Oh my god, that's a good point. It's funny Merriweather is just a doggo. He could have been a tornado Sundere. Whew.
Ken Adams
Missed
doesn't hear the
moment.
town alarm. He's asleep.
And the dog woke me up. And I could tell that dog was really scared. I knew something was wrong, but I don't hear well, but I could feel it. It was like a thunder that you couldn't hear, but you could feel it.
LaDonna's sister-in-law and young daughter join her in their
Look how
mother-in-law's
terrifying
home.
that is.
News
To like feel the shaking of the ground of it coming closer.
reports place a tornado 3 kilometers away.
My sister-in-law and I went to a window, and we could actually see the tornado in the distance, but it was like it was just sitting there, just turning, not moving at all.
In fact, the tornado isn't standing still. Its forward movement is clocked at a slow pace of 16 kilometers per hour. But its internal wind speeds are reaching more than 420 kilometers per hour. Now a killer F5, it descends on the women's refuge.
Then all of a sudden we felt a gust of wind hit the house. We could actually see the asphalt being pulled up off of the street, up the road from us. We were sitting there and I said, God, please don't take my family. Then we felt a big gust of wind hit the house and the bathroom door flew open. And at that point, we just started feeling like mud and stuff start coming in, hay.
Minutes later, when Ken Adams walks outside to see why his dog is barking, he comes face to face with a nightmare.
I'm just imagining the tiniest little dog at this giant tornado going like a dum-dum. Such a little dum-dum. Yeah, oh my god, I can't believe I'm a roof barker. That's crazy. Not like I want to blow your roof off or anything. That's gonna make no sense in the VOD, but
so
yeah.
big at the base,
Sundere.
probably a half a mile or
Tornado
3/4
charm.
of a mile, that I didn't realize it was a tornado. And by the time that I did realize that it was too late to go anywhere, I ran to the house, opened the back door, and as I did, the door flew out of my hands and the roof of the house came off. I would sort of be picked up, the house would fall on me again.
Suddenly, the tornado is gone.
The whole country looked like it was in a nuclear blast.
That was very lucky for him.
When I first looked up, I thought
unbelievably lucky.
I was dead. I mean, I really did.
Ken is wrenched back to reality when he's forced to take in the horror that surrounds him. More than 300 head of cattle were killed or injured by the tornado. Many that survived had to be shot because of the extent of their injuries.
Oh, it was terrible.
Aw, poor cows. Thanks to the 100 biddies, not Sukasa. That's Roof, dude. Roof!
About 300 acres over there, and it, most of it, you couldn't walk very far without smelling that old dead smell.
LaDonna's family emerges from the rubble of their
Terrifying.
home and into a wasteland. Nearly every home in their subdivision is obliterated. Many of their neighbors are nowhere to be seen. Others are badly injured.
Mrs. LaFrance was pinned under a tree, and her daughter was laying in the mud and had some really severe injuries to her legs and her arms. It was raining, and she was saying it was hurting her, hitting the open wounds, so the only thing I could find was a dirty blanket laying on the ground to cover her up with, just to keep the rain from hitting the wounds so bad. Later we found out that Mr. LaFrance had been killed in the tornado, and the daughter had been crying through the whole thing, wanting to know where her dad was.
27 people died that day. Half were children.
Oh,
Entire
damn.
families killed.
It's really sad. Being suddenly lifted. Okay, we're up to date. I thought I missed
As
something in the
scientists
chat. Sorry,
studied the
guys.
Gerald tornado, several intriguing facts came to light.
The thing that the tornado itself was interesting for was that it was moving very, very slowly, and it was large, and it collected a lot of debris to where the high wind speeds associated with the tornado were there for minutes in locations rather than just for a few seconds.
The tornado traveled approximately 16 kilometers per hour.
So it moving slower was actually really bad because it caused even more damage being there.
Significantly slower than the
I
average
would have 100% not thought of it. like
48
that.
kilometer per hour twister. Another oddity was that most houses in the tornado's path were completely obliterated. After much study, experts found an answer. Physicist Dave Llewellyn's computer models illustrate their findings.
You can actually have thousands of tons of dirt in that debris cloud at any given time. And that dirt can change the internal structure of the tornado.
As the Gerald tornado passed over the open Texas plain, it picked up massive amounts of dirt, slowing down the funnel's forward movement while increasing its destructive power.
I think down low,
Goddamn
that Gerald
dirt.
tornado probably
Yeah, that hitting down slows, it just keeps hitting and hitting. Yeah, then I guess it's more damage on.
acted like a giant sandblaster.
Llewellyn and others believe that instead of blowing apart homes
what
with
the
strong
fuck?
winds
That's
like some
crazy.
tornadoes, the Gerald twister destroyed structures via the massive force of wind-blown debris. The Gerald tornado was as ironic as it was tragic. Experts advise never to try and outrun a twister, but some who died in Gerald could have escaped the slow-moving storm in cars. Experts advise potential victims without storm shelters to hide in interior rooms like closets or bathrooms. But some in Gerald did exactly that and died anyway when their entire home was swept away. Still, because no two twisters are ever the same, experts advise that the best option is an underground shelter or safe room built to specific
I'm surprised if you live in the zone, like this alley. You would think most of the homes would come with something like this, you would think.
codes. The Gerald tornado changed the way experts watch for twisters. They now view storm systems with low vertical wind shear as possible violent tornado producers. But no amount of vigilance or insight could stop the deadliest tornado in US history from killing hundreds. And and later, a mega
Killing
tornado unseen in
hundreds, yeah.
modern times.
I agree. I wouldn't skydive. I wouldn't go to the edge off the viewing point in New Zealand because it was too high up.
Threatens millions. The Gerald twister killed 27 people while changing the way experts keep vigil for potential tornado-producing storms. But there was no way to prepare for the deadliest tornado in US history, a brutal F5 that tore through 3 states, killing
Jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. Do I look stupid to you, son?
hundreds. On March 18, 1925, a single tornado slaughtered 695 people in Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. The behemoth F5 blasted a 322-kilometer path of unstoppable annihilation that lasted for hours. Survivor accounts are chilling.
The air was filled with 10,000 things, boards, poles, whole sides of little framed houses. In some cases, the houses themselves were picked up and smashed to the earth, and living beings too. A baby was blown from its mother's arms. Children all around.
Oh my god, that's horrifying. The baby was just ripped out of the mother's arms.
Me were cut and bleeding. They cried and screamed. It was something awful.
The destruction was of mythic proportions, primarily because
Look, a pigly! A pigly! It's a pig.
the killer struck an extremely vulnerable population.
People had very few ideas about how to deal with tornadoes. The country was largely rural.
Isn't everyone afraid of the weather for different reasons? Australian weather can be quite brutal, just in different ways. The rain and whatnot. Brits are scared of the weather because it just carries death.
Instead of mostly metropolitan. And they had essentially no way to communicate with each other.
The town of Murfreesboro, where more than 100 people were killed, actually was hit more than 2 hours after the first fatalities from the tornado. And people wondered why hadn't any word gotten downstream, down the telephone lines or telegraph lines, that something was coming.
In 1925, several million people lived in small rural towns throughout Tornado Alley. Today, tens of millions call it home. Modern communication means better warnings, but evacuating a major city before an F5 strikes is still impossible. On May 3, 1999, the people of Oklahoma City faced the worst F5 in modern history.
Damn, sucks to live in Oklahoma. So, is there tornadoes every year or just every couple years or something?
The May 3rd, 1999 tornado that went through Moore in southern Oklahoma City was one of the most damaging in the history of the United States, no matter how we look at the data.
Late in the afternoon of May 3rd,
every
1999,
year,
weather forecasters
we sometimes
in
get
Oklahoma
some flash
carefully
flooding
track multiple
every year.
supercell
But I guess,
storms, and then the
I guess
tornado
that's
report
similar to Australia has bushfires every year. It just depends how many and how big.
that begin flooding in.
I guess it would be like an idea.
At
of
home
that.
with her 8-year-old son, Dana Grimm watches the local news.
We had been watching the coverage for hours. He said it just kept building momentum, getting bigger and bigger, and if you were above ground, you weren't going to make it.
The storm system is intense, complicated, and growing.
It's
Weather
interesting
trackers
how
watching-
terrifying it is as it starts going down.
Awe and shock as multiple storms produce multiple
Terrifying.
tornadoes.
Large tornado, very large
Yeah,
tornado.
you guys have like
Seem like-
a combination. You go to one side, you have one natural disaster. Go to the other, a different natural disaster. Go to the middle, a different natural disaster. You had to catch them all.
Just about every thunderstorm cloud that formed eventually produced a tornado at some point.
And there were times when you had the main tornado happening, and then we had what we call satellite tornadoes that would rotate around it. And they're completely separate tornadoes within the same storm system.
At about 6:25 p.m., a large tornado touches down just outside Pampa, Oklahoma.
Just another tornado. Nothing too crazy.
Doppler radar records its wind speed at 512 kilometers per hour, the fastest twister ever documented. This is a monster, and it's hurtling towards Dana Brim's home.
And they had said that it was a
Nah,
mile
yeah,
wide.
we get those in Oz too because of all our bushfires. If it's the one I'm thinking with, it's like turned into little fire tornadoes. They're fucking crazy.
And just ferocious. And it was just destroying everything in its path.
With a giant wall of howling wind just 1.6 kilometers away, Dana and her son hide in a closet.
I remember my son, he was
That's how Australia
screaming
feels.
and
We
crying. He
got some
said,
crazy stuff here, crazy animals and bushfires, but it is our country.
"Are we going to be
Feels the
okay?" I
same.
said, "We're going to be fine." He said, "What do we do?" And I said, "We pray."
Dana's fear turns to panic when she hears the tornado strike.
There was kind of a high-pitched squeal to it. And then, of course, the sound of everything, the windows just blowing out. The house was shaking. We could hear the beams in the roof breaking. The walls just lifted up and we could feel really cold air rushing underneath. And within seconds of that, the house just blew up. And I couldn't breathe. I had sucked in so much dirt that I couldn't even breathe anymore. I thought, this is it. And I remember just praying that, God, if this is it, I'm ready.
On the brink of death, the fierce tornado
I was going to
spares
say that,
Dana's
but I didn't know
life
if it was
by
bad. It makes sense, like, why they're more religious than some other countries, because Oz, you wouldn't hear some of these, like, every time you hear these people in the alley, they're like, oh, we have to pray and stuff. It's like, you wouldn't really hear that in Oz very often. Like, it's not very common anymore, but it makes sense. I feel when you have, like, natural disasters like this, you would be more religious, I feel.
her under
Make you
the
hunker
suffocating
down.
dirt. When it slams her back to the ground, she's paralyzed with fear.
And I realized then that I didn't have my son.
Hell
So
no.
I started screaming.
Exactly.
for
That's
him.
the thing. I don't think Australia has an active volcano anymore. Well, of ours are like dead.
And he came running over, and it was just a miracle of God because we were both barefoot. He came running over to me, did not have one puncture wound on his feet.
The F5 continues towards the center of Oklahoma City, crossing major highways filled with rush hour traffic. As the tornado hurtles towards them, some people panic. They abandon their cars in a desperate attempt to find shelter. For a few, that decision has fatal consequences. 3 people seeking refuge under freeway overpasses are killed by debris and the sheer force of the wind. Stranded cars block escape routes for many others.
Shields Boulevard in Oklahoma City essentially became a huge parking lot, and it blocked people from being able to escape the tornado.
By the time the F5 dissipates, 40 people are dead and nearly 700 injured.
My wife worked.
Yeah, that's when I go bush bashing. If I was on like the open plains, like roads don't matter anymore. Yeehaw! Sorry. That's I think praying, my God, a tornado wouldn't be smart. Knowing that I'd probably get picked and land in the manure or something to break my fall. Well, Loki's one of the gods, so wouldn't you worship all the Norse gods? So usually, isn't that how it usually goes? I'm sure there's a Norse god of weather.
In the hospital in Norman that night, and she worked in the emergency room, and they were swamped, of course. She saw some really horrific injuries. People came in covered with splinters of wood, looked like pincushions from so much wood. Awful things.
Many survivors suffer multiple painful wounds from being impaled by debris. Cheryl Brown studied the injuries and deaths in Oklahoma.
There were also injuries that were related to debris being embedded inside the body, all the way from small splinters to very large objects such as 2x4s.
Many survivors suffered debris-related injuries because the tornado
Our Norse god of slightly inclement weather. Next to the follow Barathol, look at the delinquents. No, but like I know like Freya's the harvest or something, well, that's the thing. Norse gods were actually very specific, because I'm pretty sure like fucking Thor's wife was like of corn or something. They had some very specific gods.
Destroyed so many homes, spewing countless shards of wood and other material into the air.
Damn.
The Oklahoma Twister leveled nearly 3,000 houses.
No, he's the god of mischief, not fire. He's mischief in something else.
And structures.
3, 2, 1, fire!
73 miles an hour.
Schiff and his team
So
at
quick.
Clemson University fire 2x4s at more than 160 kilometers per hour
Yeah.
into a variety of structures to
'Cause
represent
it's
the
also
damage
because
done.
pagan religions are more human. They value more human traits than some others.
During a tornado.
Supposed to be very
I think that
more
the
relatable to
public
humans and their
understands that tornadoes
issues.
are very dangerous. What they don't understand is that in typical construction, they have very little protection against those types of events.
When debris strikes a home, it does far more damage than simply making a hole in a wall or window.
Fire!
It gives the tornado a point of entry. Once inside, inflowing air can rip apart walls and tear off the roof. The home then becomes part of the tornado's arsenal, further fueling the funnel with debris and
It
making
eats the home. Now the home is part of me, and it will help me destroy more homes.
even more destructive.
This type of construction
Is
is
Loki
very
fire?
typical
I thought
for
Loki was just mischief.
residential, brick veneer in front of a wood frame wall.
Look that
The
up.
missile's gone all the way through the wall cavity. Most people that have this type of house would be vulnerable to an F5 tornado.
Fire!
Schiff's experiments determined that for a home to withstand the deadly onslaught of debris, the brick veneer must have an 8-centimeter thick backing of concrete.
So this wall here would be suitable for a shelter to resist tornadoes.
Most homes in Oklahoma City were brick veneer with wood frames. This common construction, coupled with the sheer number of homes in the tornado's path, increased the debris field exponentially. Dana Grimm survived with a broken back, her son with a puncture wound to his chest.
I truly believe that the reason that I was thrown twice, if I had not been picked back up and thrown again, I would have suffocated because I could not breathe in anymore.
10 supercell storms spawned 70 tornadoes that spring day, including the F5 that cut a 24-kilometer path over interstate highways and devastated several suburbs of Oklahoma City.
It was sad. I think there were 14 in our own housing edition that died. And it's a miracle of God that we didn't.
The Oklahoma tornado caused more than $1 billion in damage, the costliest tornado in U.S. history.
Yeah, the only thing I'm finding here is not that he's the god of flame, but I can't find it in there. It's just that his name, Logi, in some writing is close to flame, but there seems to be not much writing of him being the god of flame. But I'd have to look it up more, or fire, flame, whatever. So I'd have to look it up more.
Over here now, we're completely.
Okay, it depends on the version. Okay, it depends on the version, because like most pagan myths, there are versions because it is a verbal speech. It's not written, it's verbal. From what a lot of them found, there are versions where he's Thor's brother. There's versions where he's Odin's brother, Odin's adopted brother, but the main one is that he's always adopted. There's also another one where he's Odin's blood brother. So like Thor's uncle, but then still not related. Its blood brother is like a bros before hoes, like the broest of the bros. But he's always a giant, Jotun, or whatever you call it. But just like Greek, there are multiple versions usually of the same story because they're verbal. And they have existed so long, there is multiple retellings. Same with like Greek and Roman.
It was a rubble pile. If you had been in the
Found
open,
by pagans.
it would not have been a very pleasant place to be.
Things would have been much worse if the tornado had veered just
That's the
16
thing.
kilometers to
The versions of Loki on how much he messes with people also vary. I'm on opposite doors on my closet, yeah. Yeah, that's fine. If that's what you do. I think that's the thing. It's just like when there's multiple versions, it's just for other people it is like a myth. Same with I take Christianity, that's a myth to me. That's a story. Same with pagan stories because they're not my religions. They're just
even so, the more
historical stories, very similar to that. Boots up a stream at 7 in the morning, bro. On the grind. Gotta be on that grind. Well, it's like 11 a.m. for me. What time is it for you guys?
Oklahoma tornado and its
So
companion
I take
twist-
it as like they are where they are historically written. So I like go against it like it's history. Like this was written in XYZ. This was written in this period. Blah, blah, blah.
rank as the most deadly and destructive
That's
outbreak
Sigma
in
Brian
modern
said.
history.
People don't believe
They would be
what I believe,
fast
I'm not going to
surpassed
force
by
it on
an
it.
F5
Exactly.
striking
I think you
rate
can
of
respect a source as what someone believed at the time, especially.
City.
You can still respect
That
it
would be a mega
and not
disaster.
believe it.
One experts warn could happen.
Brutal.
Every year, major U.S. cities in Tornado Alley play a game of
You know,
Russian
on
roulette
YouTube
with
for
massive twisters
4
that wreak havoc
hours.
there. In 1999,
Yep.
Oklahoma City
Oh,
lost
yeah.
the game when a
3.
giant tornado
It's
killed
because I was
40
up.
people,
I slept in,
injured
so
nearly 700,
I was supposed to stream
and
like
racked
at like 10 p.m. or something, but I slept in, so I was like, "Fuck it, we'll stream anyway.
costs of
We'll
more than
do
$1
it
billion.
anyway."
Only sheer luck kept the
Women
tornado
are just
from
a
striking
distraction.
downtown. Researcher Scott Ray knows the next major city to be struck by an F5 may not be so fortunate.
Dallas is overdue for a large violent class tornado.
Dallas, Texas is a boomtown
Dallas,
sprawled along the
Texas.
southern boundary of Tornado Alley.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. I can't help it.
It's one of the
When they say the
largest and
American name,
fastest
Dallas.
growing metro areas in the U.S., with more than 5 million residents and 600 corporate
In-
headquarters.
Honkai Star Rail Pod.
Dallas is 10 times
playing
larger than Oklahoma City.
I was shocked a bit when I saw some of the aerial footage of Oklahoma City. The
Jeez.
amount of damage that had occurred
so
in that
much
was pretty
damage.
amazing.
Ray assists local governments with planning for hazards, especially threats from tornadoes. To help Dallas
I hear the
prepare for a
fofo.
possible mega disaster, he has modeled over 60 different scenarios of how the Dallas region would be affected by a violent tornado.
For reasons of credibility, it was very important that we look at an event that actually had occurred somewhere else. So we took the event in Oklahoma City basically because the data was very good for that particular event, and we could transpose it by just moving those same geographical characteristics of the tornado on top of the geography of Dallas-Fort Worth. So we got to see it kind of from our own perspective.
Ray and his team painstakingly overlaid the exact path taken by the Oklahoma tornadoes over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A mega disaster unfolds when Oklahoma's F5 tornado rampages through downtown Dallas.
It would easily be the worst damaging tornado event that we have had to date in the U.S.
Ray's nightmare scenario begins as a supercell storm forms over north-central Texas. A 160-kilometer-per-hour tornado, an F3, touches down in a dusty field 10 miles southwest of Dallas.
Capital
Its
city
first
of
target is
Oklahoma.
the suburb
Yama.
of Cockrell
Sorry, I
Hills.
spoke to him at the door.
Packing winds in
It was my
excess of
neighbor, thank God.
320
Oh,
kilometers
it's
per
all the
hour.
stuff
Cars
that
are
we
tossed
got.
aside. Buildings are decimated. The tornado continues
But I would have no idea.
northeast,
I couldn't even.
unrelenting in its
I wouldn't
assault.
even be able to name your states or American states.
On thousands of homes. The twister's internal wind speeds rise past 400 kilometers per hour, turning it into an F5. Fueled by tons of debris, the giant tornado slows as it descends on the busy freeway.
A clogged highway holds a heck of a lot more people than one that is moving comfortably. And the other problem that you have is, where do you go?
Panic in
There's Oklahoma. Wait, so there's Oklahoma the state and Oklahoma the city? Smells like ass. Like, I think this is the bunny bin Django or someone got me. But it came with bin bags and they smell like butt. They smell like dookie. These bin bags smell like butthole. What the fuck? But, okay, what? That's weird.
ensues as many abandon their cars, creating a traffic jam that traps thousands.
The fuck?
The 443
Something random was fuck on the reactor? But for some reason, I don't know why, they literally smell like crap. It smells like dog shit. Why does this bin smell like dog shit? What were they doing in this country that this package has arrived smelling like dog shit? Like, yeah, I don't know who's in the package, they let up that my door in the middle of this, but I'm just checking because the bin bags actually smell like someone shat in this package. Sorry, I know it's not very ladylike talking like this, but it does! I don't think this part does. Dog crap. What the fuck? Okay, I think it's just the bin bags. That's weird though, right? Night car, thank you.
Per hour winds.
I will not enjoy my dog crap bin. How dare you?
Anyone hiding under an overpass is vulnerable to flying debris and violent winds. Cars snatched up by the powerful updraft winds are spun around inside a giant vortex, then shot out, creating a dangerous hazard for anyone in their path. Next, the deadly twister approaches downtown Dallas. Dozens of skyscrapers and tens of thousands of people crowd the city. Giant glass windows shatter. Marble and bricks are ripped off buildings. A deadly shower of glass and other debris rains down onto the crowd below.
Jeez. This is why I hate the idea about living in skyscrapers, and I don't really like apartments. Next up, I don't like heights, but you won't catch me fucking living in one of these skyscraper things. You know, I watched a video of someone talking about that they lived in one, and you could feel the wind shake the glass, and I'm like, why do rich people want to live in these? It sounds terrifying.
Most of the skyscrapers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area are predominantly covered with glass on the outside, and that's not very durable. But the amount of damage from getting wind and broken glass spread out through a downtown area is going to be pretty dramatic.
A packed commuter train snakes through the city. It swept off the tracks and slammed into a skyscraper, killing hundreds of the train and office buildings.
But I think something good can come from something horrifying, like good information and stuff, but you don't want something like... It still makes it horrifying.
There's little doubt that debris would be probably the largest generator of damage in the Metroplex, and it's basically because there's so much of it.
Better ways to spend your ridiculous money than this. Living in that death trap.
Gravel, just about anything you can imagine can become a projectile, and
it's kind of like rich people living in the center of the city. Why would you? Sounds horrendous.
And with almost unlimited supply.
The tornado continues north, leaving the wreckage of downtown Dallas behind. Tornadic winds more than 500 kilometers per hour now descend on the suburban landscape of Lakewood. The 92,000 people living here have had up to 20 minutes to seek underground shelter, a seemingly reasonable chance for survival. But like the Gerald, Texas twister, those hiding in closets or bathrooms can only pray. Finally, the worst tornado in history slowly drifts skyward and dissipates. The war zone behind it is 61 kilometers long. Dallas is devastated.
I don't think there's any way to really sugarcoat an event. It's going to be difficult to deal with regardless. So there's going to be a lot of damage. There are going to be a lot of people that need help.
Total damages approach $5 billion. Tens of thousands are homeless and scores injured. The death toll is unknown.
Yeah, ice cream. No, I would count pasta sauce more like a smoothie.
Because they involve
and technically a smoothie can be anything, doesn't just mean a fruit. You can make a vegetable smoothie.
Bad decisions. We don't know what decision they're going to make.
This one tastes good.
The best decision city planners can make is to prepare with multiple underground shelters, rehearsed evacuation plans, and a vigilant public. But even that won't likely be enough.
I think it would pretty much be impossible financially to build a city that could really survive violent class tornadoes or any scenario like that.
This is the last one, so it's the hypothetical,
in major
right?
metropolitan cities throughout Tornado Alley, science is in a life or death race against time to understand one of Mother Nature's biggest secrets.
In an ideal world, we'd have radar or other instrument measurements
not my problem.
on every tornado that occurs.
Sounds like
the
Jesus is
practical world that we live in, that's just not going to happen.
Okay, this storm in the next hour is going to produce this type of tornado. We're just not there yet, and it's hard to say when we'll be there. We've certainly got a ways to
Yeah,
go.
sometimes nature just makes everything so much
Given
worse.
the
just
limited
like
ability
COVID
to
makes
predict
everything worse.
tornadoes, there is a very real cause for concern.
Most people think about disasters as very random events that can happen to them. And I think that holds true with tornadoes as well.
If you wait long enough, something resembling the worst case scenario is going to happen.
To be fair, like, having bunkers here are not very common, but if I lived in Tornado Alley, I would 100% have one of those fancy little bunkers.
Eventually.
I'd make it Fallout
Until
themed.
science learns more about these brutal forces of nature, the only thing that can be done is to prepare before a mega disaster strikes.
You got a storm shelter bunker? Actually set up? Cool. Whiskey is a ketchup? What? Corners are free. Don't speed up climate change. That's bad. Climate change is bad, guys. Oh my god. Don't piss off Mother Nature, homies. It came with the house. It needs to be repelled. Do you want to see pictures? Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm actually really interested in seeing something like that, because that's just stuff we don't have here in Oz. I know it's a weird thing to want to see, but it is cool.